This video demonstrates assembly of a single-cell all-liquid fuel cell or redox flow cell using Scribner's all-liquid reactant cell hardware. Primary components of the fixture are end plates, current collectors, gasket and gasket template, flow frames, tubing and fittings for reactant inlets and outlets, O-rings, bolts and washers, and cell heaters. Items needed to complete the assembly that are not part of the cell fixture kit include a very sharp fine-tip knife, Krytox non-flammable grease, electrode material and membrane for a flow battery, or membrane electrode assembly and gas diffusion media for a fuel cell, and a torque wrench with a 7/16" or 11mm nut drive. To assemble the redox flow cell, the first step is to prepare the gaskets, electrodes, and separator. Use the gasket templates to aid in cutting the gasket windows and alignment holes. Remove load cables and thermocouple along with heaters if connected. Remove the 8 bolts and flat washers and open the cell, setting aside the flow fields and current collectors. Insert the inlet and outlet tubing and fittings so that the rigid tubing protrudes from the interface of the end plate. The tubing will hold the current collector and flow field in place during the assembly. Do this for both end plates. Place the O-rings and current collector on the end plate. The insulated side of the current collector faces the end plate, and the gold-plated side faces the graphite flow field. The reactant tubing should protrude slightly for both end plates. Add the flow field, making sure that the reactant tubing is inserted into the portholes on the backside of the flow field. Complete the assembly to this point for both end plates. The flow field should sit flush on the current collector. Finger tighten the nut on the reactant tubing so that the tubing does not move. Now, start with the negative cell side, the end plate with threaded bolt inserts and no thermocouple fitting. Install alignment tubes in the negative flow field. Next, place the flow field gasket on the flow field. Install the negative flow frame on top of the flow field gasket and then place the electrode in the flow frame window. Place the main gasket on the flow frame to complete the assembly of the negative half of the cell. Place the membrane or separator with the pre-cut alignment holes on top of the negative side main gasket. Continue the same with the positive side of the cell by adding the main gasket, flow frame, electrode, and the flow field gasket. Finally, add the positive side end plate current collector flow field assembly using the alignment pins to line up the two halves of the cell. Lightly lubricate the threads of the bolts with a non-reactive, non-flammable lubricant such as Krytox. Feed the bolts through the negative end plate holes and into the positive end plate and finger tighten. Tighten the bolts following a star-cross pattern to the desired level using a torque wrench. The cell assembly is now complete. Go to the Product Support tab on the Redox Flow Cell Text Fixtures webpage at scribner.com to download application notes on these and other experiments.